All right. First things first, welcome to CNN. I'm your host, the underdog, Kirk Kennedy. Let's go in. On this channel, we take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. All right. Stay with me. This is going to be one of those ones. All right. We got a lot to talk about. I'm not going to waste your time. When y'all jump in, you jump in. Some of y'all working, some of y'all at home freezing, and all of it, right? We're going to jump in. A lot to talk about. Like and subscribe to the channel or don't. I get it. The title of this episode is called Not Convinced. There are three things I've been paying attention to out in the media, out in the world, and I'm just not convinced. Now, that doesn't necessarily, it's not negative necessarily, but it does mean I'm seeing things and I'm processing them and I'm wondering, And I may be thinking what other people are thinking, but I'm going after some of the breadcrumbs maybe differently. Who knows? So this is going to be not convinced. I'm just not sure. I'm not sure. But these aren't necessarily bad things, but I'm not sure. All right, let's start off. Kanye West apologizes. Kanye West apologizes. He takes out an ad in the Wall Street Journal, and he gives a somewhat lengthy apology. And we're going to read the apology in full. I'm going to tell you a couple things that people are saying, and then I'm not convinced. And let me explain why. All right, let's start with the apology from Kanye West. All right, it is in the Wall Street Journal, and it is entitled "To Those I've Hurt." I'm going to read it in its entirety. I'm going to read it somewhat fast to get through it. It's not too long, but then we're going to talk about it. All right, 25 years ago, I was in a car accident that broke my jaw and caused injury to the right frontal lobe of my brain. At the time, the focus was on the visible damage, the fracture, the swelling, and the immediate physical trauma. The deeper injury, the one inside my skull, went unnoticed. Comprehensive scans were not done. Neurological exams were limited. And the possibility of a frontal lobe injury was never raised. It wasn't properly diagnosed until 2023. The medical oversight caused serious damage to my mental health and led to my bipolar 1 type 1 diagnosis. Bipolar disorder comes with its own self-defense system, denial. When you're manic, you don't think you're sick. You think everyone else is overreacting. You feel like you're seeing the world more clearly than ever, when in reality, you're losing your grip entirely. I really appreciate his explanation and his breakdown of this. I think this is really good to help people who don't really understand, especially when you remember the Ye from his album, Ye, when the front cover says, "My bipolar is my superpower." Now he's coming to grips with the reality, right? Then he says, once you people label you as crazy, you feel as if you cannot contribute anything meaningful to the world. It's easy for people to joke and laugh it off, when in fact, this is a very serious, debilitating disease you can die from. According to the World Health Organization and Cambridge University, people with bipolar disorder have a life expectancy that is shortened by 10 to 15 years on average, and a 2 to 3 times higher all-cause mortality rate than the general population. This is on par with severe heart disease, type 1 diabetes, HIV, and cancer, all lethal and fatal if left untreated. The scariest thing about this disorder is how pervasive it is. When it tells you you don't need help, it makes you blind, but convinced you have insight. You feel powerful, certain, and unstoppable, which would lead probably to that bipolar is my superpower statement. I lost touch with the reality. Things got worse the longer I ignored the problem. I said and did things I deeply regret. Some of the people I love most, I treated the worst. You endured fear, confusion, humiliation, and exhaustion of trying to love someone who was at times unrecognizable. Looking back, I became detached from my true self. In that fractured state, I gravitated toward the most destructive symbol I could find, the swastika, and even sold T-shirts bearing it. One of the difficult aspects. I think I'm not allowed to say that word on YouTube. One of the difficult aspects of having bipolar type 1 are the disconnected moments, many of which I still cannot recall, that led to poor judgment and reckless behavior that sometimes feels like an out-of-body experience. I regret and am deeply mortified by my actions in that state, and am committed to accountability, treatment, and meaningful change. It does not excuse what I did, though. I am not a Nazi or an anti-Semite. I love Jewish people. To the Black community, which held me down through all of the highs and lows and the darkest of times, the Black community is unquestionably the foundation of who I am. I'm so sorry to have let you down. I love us. In early 2025, I fell into a 4-month-long manic episode of psychotic, paranoid, and impulsive behavior that destroyed my life. As the situation became increasingly unsustainable, there were times I didn't want to be here anymore. Having bipolar disorder is not a state of constant mental illness. When you go into the manic episode, you are ill at that point. When you are not in an episode, you are completely normal, and that's when the wreckage from the illness hits the hardest. Hitting rock bottom a few months ago, my wife encouraged me to finally get help. He doesn't say what the rock bottom is, and he doesn't need to, but it's interesting. That's an interesting statement. I've found comfort in Reddit forums of all places. Different people speak of being in manic or depressive episodes of a similar nature. I read their stories and realized that I was not alone. It's not just me who ruins their entire life once a year despite taking meds every day and being told by the so-called best doctors in the world that I am not bipolar, but merely experiencing symptoms of autism. My words as a leader in my community have had real global impact and influence. In my mania, I lost complete sight of that. As I find my new baseline and new center through an effective regime of medication, therapy, exercise, and clean living, I have newfound much-needed clarity. I'm pouring my energy into positive, meaningful art, music, clothing, design, and other new ideas to help the world. I'm not asking for sympathy or a free pass, though I aspire to earn your forgiveness. I write today simply to ask for your patience and understanding as I find my way home. So this is going everywhere. Everyone is talking about this apology from Kanye West. And again, this episode is called I'm Not Convinced. Let me make sure you understand what I'm saying. I have a son that has neurodivergent. I love when people are able to articulate the impact of being neurodivergent. I am not. So this letter is basically three things. It's him describing what it was like to be having bipolar manic episodes, his apology to the Jewish community, and an apology to the Black community. All right. Now, I've watched a lot of people talk about this, and as I wrestle with my own thoughts, some people have said that this is genuine, and some say this is contrived. So some people say this seems like a genuine apology. He's taking accountability. And some people say this is contrived. This is typical Kanye West. Want to be back in the attention. He's been quiet and so forth. All right. To be clear, let's be clear. No matter what people say, none of us truly know. We're not Kanye. We're not his wife. We're not the Lord. We don't know his heart. We don't know. But let me give you a couple of observations of why I'm not convinced. Let me tell you what I mean by not convinced. It's not that I'm not convinced that what he's saying, he believes he's genuine, that he's making a real appeal for things that he said that have been very damaging. There's a couple things. The first thing is this, for me. The Wall Street Journal is an odd place to put an ad for an apology. The Wall Street Journal. Now, you can call the Wall Street Journal just typical reading. But it's still very much a business magazine. You know, it's the Wall Street Journal. You can read it for other things, but it pretty much appeals to a certain class of people, right? It pretty much appeals to a certain. It's an odd place to take out this apology, and it's an odd place to do it in just that location. Now, I'm not saying that he owes anyone to do it multiple places. I just thought it was interesting when I heard, oh, wow, Wall Street Journal? Okay. All right. You know, hey, he's free to do what he wants. I just thought that's an interesting place. But then my thoughts went elsewhere. And it was the emphasis on apologizing to the Jewish community. Now, I'll be honest. I think it's good that he did that. He said some crazy stuff. He made some songs that were crazy. I get it. But here's where something kind of clicked in me. I was like, well, wait a minute. Hold on now. Now, I don't know if you remember this, right? But this isn't Kanye's first rodeo apologizing to the Jewish community, right? So I don't know if you remember this, but I'll put this on the screen. In November 2025, he met privately with Rabbi Yosef Pinto in New York, where he expressed profound remorse, said he was taking accountability for his anti-Semitic tirades, and he asked for forgiveness. Now, this was a video recorded, so you could see him talking. He was holding the rabbi's hand, and he was seemingly publicly apologizing for what he did and what he said. And this was in November of 2025. So we're talking 2 months ago. He just did a public apology to the Jewish community. Now, if you read this letter, you would think that he hasn't apologized to them in a long time. I mean, he said almost the same things that he said here a long time. You'd think he hasn't said it, but he's communicated these things, even just 2 months ago in a video that you could probably find on YouTube or someplace, right? Now, I commend him for humbling himself in that way, right? And it seems like he's genuinely contrite. But I just thought, wow, in 2025, you really went on a tirade and really apologized. You had a rabbi there, and the rabbi even said that Kanye West seems to be taking responsibility for his actions. It seemed like a positive thing, right? Good. But I just thought the emphasis on apologizing to them again was like, okay, all right, okay. But then he said to the Black community, he said this. This is a quote from what he said. He said, to the Black community, which held me down throughout the highs and lows in the darkest times, the Black community is unquestionably the foundation of who I am. I'm so sorry I've let you down. Now, I'm saying this because I'm thinking of this in contrast to the public statements about what he said about the Jews. Now, if you're not Black, or you may think like, oh, his comments against the Jews were better. But if you're Black, I think you would say that his comments were equally or more hurtful for many reasons. I know that he did go on in 2018. He did go on WGCI, the Chicago radio station, and he apologized for some things he said about Black people. But that was a radio station. That wasn't like a viral moment in the same way that even this letter is. I think that Kanye West, whether you agree with him or not, whether you think like, oh, Black people, I'm not saying you can't address these issues, but I think he said things like slavery was a choice. He wore a T-shirt with Candace Owens saying white lives matter. And don't get me wrong, I didn't bang with the Black Lives Matter movement. Black Lives Matter. I didn't bang with the movement. I didn't trust those women. I wasn't supportive of it. I didn't march with them. I didn't back the movement, but I understood the sentiment, right? I understood the sentiment, even though I disagreed with them and had no trust in them. But to basically say to Black people in this statement, hey, you held me down, you're unquestionably who I am, I'm so sorry. It feels like a lesser apology, a greater apology to the Jewish community, a much lesser apology to the Black community, which I think if we're the people we're the foundation of who you are, then he should have a much greater apology to Black people. You don't have to agree, or it should be as equal to, you did a video 2 months ago apologizing to the Jewish community, but to the Black community, we get this sentence or these 2 sentences, or maybe one long sentence, and that's it, right? That's odd to me. Because I know Kanye West is aware that he's done some serious harm to the Black community. Now, we forgive and all that stuff. We get it. But that's happened. Another thing that's challenging for me is this. He's scheduled to drop a new album on January 30th called Bully. Now, if you know the history of Kanye West, he typically he'll do this. He'll put himself in the public. Either it's really crazy stuff, like wearing a KKK outfit on DJ Academics and show. It's either crazy things or there's some kind of apology, because right after that, there's usually a follow-up of an album coming out, merch being released, and so forth, right? So Kanye West has an album dropping on January 30th. Apparently, this is an album he was supposed to drop a while ago, but he wasn't getting the kind of public support, all of these things, to put this album Bully out. Now, again, this is not, because I'm saying I'm not convinced, and I'll explain what I mean specifically. I'm not saying he's not telling the truth. I'm just saying You judge a tree by the fruit that it bears. There is a pattern of Kanye West doing something like this right before a release of some type of material things that would make him finances. In fact, let's look again closely at what he said in the end of this letter. He says this: I am pouring my energy into positive, meaningful art, music, clothing, design, and other new ideas to help the world. Those other new ideas will make Kanye West money, obviously, right? So, and it's a well-known fact that he has taken a hit over the last couple of years, so the last 6 years, from the anti-Semitic things and the different Adidas and a number of different organizations have pulled out from supporting him. You get so let me tell you, Forbes estimated his net worth about 1.3 to 2 billion in 2020, 2022, and then the Adidas Yeezy deal fell out. That's a loss of $105 billion. Forbes dropped them down to 400 million. Then you lose money with what is this organization? JP Morgan pulls out of financing him. Adidas obviously pulls out. He loses a distribution deal. These are all things worth significant money. Now, to you and I, $400 million is like, what are you talking about, fam? He's got money. Yeah, but when you got billions and you're down to 400 million, that would be like me and you going from whatever you're making to making a $20,000 a year job. You're like, this isn't enough. I got expenses. I got things I'm paying for. All these things are happening. So again, I'm not saying that, but the fact that he's dropping an album, presumably on Friday, and in this statement, he's saying, I'm going to be making merchandise and things that will help the world. And based on the history, I got to be honest. Let me say what I hope first. Here's what I hope. I hope that Kanye West is genuine. This is what I hope. I hope he's genuine and that we hear more of this. I would love to see that. As a believer, we're supposed to believe the best. But here's the one challenge for me with that reality. Love believes the best. The one noticeable thing that was absent in this new pursuit of Kanye West is Jesus. Where's the Lord at? Remember a couple of years ago when he got saved and he went on his tirade, and I loved it. I didn't even care if it was genuine or not, in the sense that Philippians 1, when Paul said, I'm in chains and people are preaching about Jesus, I don't care if it's for pretense or if it's genuine. I'm just glad the name of the Lord is being proclaimed. That's how I felt. I was like, let him do his choir, let him travel, let him do all that stuff. Because I thought, you know what, whether he's genuine or not. Listen, in Matthew 23, Jesus said to the crowd of people that the Pharisees sit on Moses' seat. And he said, observe what they say, but don't imitate their lifestyle. In other words, Jesus was saying, I'm going to use people who are not qualified to be in eternity with me in heaven, but I'm going to use them because they have a speaking ability. They understand the law. They understand. They can explain to you about Moses, but don't imitate their lifestyle. Jesus is fine using people for his glory that reject him because he's given us all the gifts that we have. He's given us every mode of intellect, all of it. So when I thought, man, hey, I wanted Kanye to be genuine, but I was like, if he's not, people are hearing Jesus' name, Jesus being talked about in a way that he hasn't been in a long time. And I loved it. I loved it. And then he started wilding. And the next thing you know, turned his back on the Lord. And there's no mention of the Lord here. So as someone who loves the Lord and trying to live for the Lord, I would love this to be genuine and he would actually come to real repentance. But if I'm being honest, I'm not convinced. Now, I don't need to believe him or not believe him because it doesn't directly affect me. But there's a part of me that's like, man, I hope this isn't, I'm dropping an album, I'm putting out new merchandise, I'm trying to get back on I hope not, because, you know, he said he hit rock bottom a few months ago. I said earlier, I have no idea what that means, but I hope it wasn't financial rock bottom. I hope it wasn't, you know, he's no longer going to be able to put out music at his level, because even up to recently, he was boasting about, I can do this on my own. So we'll see. I think a lot of people are skeptical. I'm hopeful. I would love to see this be genuine just for him. I don't benefit either way. I would love to see it be genuine for him, but it may not be genuine. I don't know. I'm not convinced, even though I'm hopeful. All right. The second thing I'm not convinced of. of what's happening in Minnesota. What's happening in Minnesota. Here's the first thing I thought after, maybe it was after Alex Peretti recently, this guy, right? First, no, let me back up. When I first heard that ICE was going to Minnesota, when I first heard that, here was my first question. This was the first question that came to my mind. Why Minnesota? Why Minnesota? Why are you going to Minnesota? I was like, why is he going to Minnesota? I didn't know why. I was like, okay, what's going on? What's going on in Minnesota, right? And then we start seeing stuff happening. And then the lady, Renee Good, is shot and unalived by an ICE agent. And there's debate about what she was trying to hit him with a car. Didn't seem that way at all from my vantage point. Seemed like she was trying to pull away. But okay, she was in the car. And then you got this new guy right now recently, Alex Peretti. And this is one that's really, really bad. This is one that's really bad. So I was like, why Minnesota? What's happening in Minnesota? So I did a little research. And I came up with, I saw this. This is just one. I'm not going to give all the research I have. I just want to show you this to make a point. It says this, that internal DOJ, Department of Justice, and Department of Homeland Security discussions reported in the press describe Minnesota as being singled out despite other states having larger undocumented populations raising equal sovereignty and 10th Amendment arguments in the state's lawsuit, right? So they're saying they're being singled out. So I was like, why Minnesota? Now you hear all this, oh, they have a high Somali population. I'll be honest, ever since maybe when I watched Black Hawk Down, the movie, I think that was in Somalia. That was like it was all of a sudden. I don't remember. I know there was an FBI case where there was some fraud and child fraud, but it wasn't substantial. My research has showed there wasn't substantial. There are actually undocumented immigrants in other places. So what's going on? Why Minnesota? And why are they saying things that seem so contrary to the reality? Like I think Trump and Kristi Noem and even Jay, they're getting their heads hit, even by their own, even by people who were MAGA are saying, nah, bro, the NRA, conservative, they're like, nope, we can't support you in this, bro. That he had a gun, he's a documented terrorist. Let me tell you why it's hard for me to believe them. And I'm not trying to go against Romans 13. Let me tell you why it's hard for me to believe them. Remember Springfield, Ohio, the Haitians eating dogs story? Remember that? In, what was it, September of 2024, right? In that story, I don't know if you remember this, right? In that story, there was a woman named, her name was Erica Lee, put a Facebook post out that said that Haitian immigrants in Ohio were eating people's pets. Remember this? This was a false story. And then what happened was J.D. Vance went on a rampage with this. Remember this? Listen to this outline. Here's a brief. Actually, let me pull it up here. Let's look at this. Now let's look at it here. Here's a brief outline. September 9, 2024, Vance posts on X that Haitian illegal immigrants in Springfield are causing chaos and claims there are reports of pets being abducted and eaten, explicitly tying this to his earlier press release about Springfield. The next day, September 10th, 2024, news outlets report on his post and note the local officials say there is no evidence for any pet eating by Haitian immigrants. The following days, Vance continues to share and add to the story, posting supposed evidence, including a misleading old video from Dayton that local police and the mayor say does not show Haitians eating pets. September 15th, in a CNN State of the Union interview with Dana Bash, Vance defends claims as firsthand accounts from constituents, but also characterizes them as a meme. So he's agreeing that these are a meme, these narratives about Haitians eating pets, eating dogs. And he said this, and I quote, "If I have to create stories so that the American media actually pays attention, then that's what I'm going to do." So I'm going to do. Here are the consequences that happened in Springfield, Ohio. Dozens of hoax bomb threats hit Springfield schools, city hall, courts, hospitals, colleges, and major stores, forcing evacuations, lockdowns, and temporary closures. Police and FBI had to investigate 30 to 33 threats Many traced to actors outside the U.S., and the governor sent state troopers to guard and sweep schools daily. Springfield's mayor and police reportedly had to publicly debunk the claims, warning that national politicians' rhetoric was hurting the city and distracting from real issues like housing and school capacity. The story drew intense national and international media attention, and their eating the pets narrative was labeled PolitiFact's Lie of the Year. So think about this for a second. This is our vice president who was standing by this story. Donald Trump put this on his Truth Social, and they lied and said that Haitian immigrants were eating dogs. That was not true. And then it said, well, I'll say what I need to get America's attention. I don't care who you voted for, what you stand politically. If you're a believer, we're about truth. And truth also means that people were made in God's image. That's a crazy thing to do. And look at the havoc that caused. All the money that had to be spent on all the fear. You know how many the Haitian immigrants were being terrorized? They were terrorized. I mean, America's foundation is to allow immigrants to come in. There's no indication those Haitian immigrants were all illegals. They were terrorized. That whole town, state, terrorized, right? Why would you lie about that and then make it silly? You know, there's a proverb that says, I think it's Proverbs 26:19. It says, or maybe it's 26:17. I want to say it's 19. I could be wrong. But it says, like firebrands from an arrow is the one who lies to his friend and says, I was only joking, right? So here you have our vice president. Well, he wasn't vice president at the time. He was running. He was a governor of Ohio or something. I forgot what he was in Ohio. Senator or something. And he's saying this. This is a crazy thing to do. Like at the expense of people. You don't love people in this way. It's a crazy thing to do. So now fast forward to 2026, 2 years later, and we're in Minneapolis. And we're being told that now people who look like, who everyone is saying this was an ordinary individual, you're calling them domestic terrorists. Now, here's the other thing. People are used to people of color being attacked by law enforcement. And we've gotten so used to it that we can't help but blame the people of color in some way, shape, or form. Even in the most crazy situations, someone will find a way to say, yeah, but this is now happening to people, white people. This is happening to white people now. This is not people of color. ICE is not just targeting illegal immigrants that are criminals in these states. They're going, anyone who gets in their way, which as on my last video, I explained to you, the Department of Homeland Security has released that videotaping a police officer is not this, there's no crime there. Even cussing at a police officer is no crime. So all the language of, you get out of their way, you're allowed to do that. The Department of Homeland Security said, I'm not saying it's wise. I wouldn't do it. But the Department of Homeland Security said it's not a crime for them to do that. Now, this guy, Alex Peretti, looked like holding his camera up. He never had his gun in his hand. So the narrative that's being painted, I think, is a lie. And I think it's on brand with what has already been communicated. And they're trying to make you and I take sides on something that the only side that you should take if you're a Christian is the side where the spear went into Jesus and blood and water came out. That's the only side you should be on, the side of truth. I think our administration, they're lying. They're lying about a lot of these things to justify it. But why Minnesota? Why Minnesota? Now, again, you don't have to agree with any of this, but let me give you my perspective on why I think. I'm not the Lord. I'm not in their secret meetings. I don't know. But Jesus said you judge a tree by the fruit that it bears. You can disagree because you voted for Trump and stuff like that. I think our president has proven to be very arrogant, very vindictive. He's a vengeful man. He even said at Charlie Kirk's funeral, I'm paraphrasing, but he told her after she said, I forgive the person who shot him. I still think, whatever you think about Erica Kirk, whatever you think, whether she's a grieving widow, whether she was, whatever you think, that was a good moment. That was a good moment of genuine Christianity. I'm not saying she's genuine or not, but that moment was a beautiful moment. That's the gospel, the effect of the gospel. I forgive you. That's the effect of the gospel. That was a beautiful moment for the gospel to be. Trump gets up right after and says, yeah, I don't forgive my enemies. Not so much. I don't forgive him. I'm not forgiving him. And he basically said he takes vengeance on those who are his enemies. I'm saying that. Why Minnesota 2020 election? Remember 2020. Let's do a quick year in review. We come into 2020, January, Trump gets impeached by the Democrats, right? For conduct, character. This is coming into the election year. In January, 2020 happens, right? Impeachment happens, right? It goes through, but there's no real consequences for Trump. Shortly after that, Kobe Bryant dies in a helicopter crash, holding on to his daughter, right? They die early February. That rocks the world. It's like, whoa. It just was different because even though he wasn't playing in the NBA, it was still Kobe, it was still Kobe Bryant, and he's holding his daughter. We have a soft spot in our heart towards most people and their children, right? He dies in a plane crash. Within a couple of weeks, COVID hits. I was actually in San Francisco speaking from February 20th to the 24th, and San Francisco was the first largest city to shut down. It was the first major city to shut down. And I thought, oh my gosh, I think maybe I've gotten COVID. Remember, you were asymptomatic and you might not. So I was thinking at any moment I'm going to die because it's going to become a symptom in me. So I remember that. But COVID starts after that. But a couple months later, you have three major events. One that blew up everything. One was Ahmaud Arbery down there. I think it was in Mississippi somewhere. I want to say it's Mississippi. I think it was Mississippi. Could be the state wrong, but he was the jogger running down. He gets gunned down by two white men. And then there was a national story about that. One guy videotaped it. Eventually, just Candace Owens went on, said he was a criminal, went into a house and was running from it. All this type of stuff. And all that proved to be wrong. And those men were eventually charged, including the men who took the video. Then you had Breonna Taylor, where federal agents go into her house and apparently she gets killed and there's all that stuff happens, right? But then you have the story of the last 10 years, George Floyd. George Floyd, whatever you think about him, we all watched a police officer on his back for 8 minutes and 42 seconds, and we watched him die in front of us. Now, when we watch it in Hollywood, we're trained for that. We're used to that. But watching it in person and realizing, wow, that had an effect. And I think as a result of a lot of the just disparity between blacks seemingly being killed, at least what was presented, and law enforcement, I think people just snapped. And that was the election year. It was the election year. Here's what happened. The conservative narrative was this, that every time there's an election, the left tries to draw an emotional support through emphasizing law enforcement killing of black men to try to get, because the narrative is black people always vote Democrat, which I think there is some truth to that. And I think it's a dumb truth, because I just don't think any of them are trustworthy, the Democrats or Republicans. I don't trust any of them, to be honest. But they said that this is the narrative. So George Floyd's story essentially overshadowed the world. You remember there were people marching all over the world in protest of his death. And it just became, and Black Lives Matter capitalized on that. A couple months later, Trump lost the election and basically said the election was stolen. And there's still been no proof of that. The only reason why people believe it is because they're concerned, they want to believe it. You just believe a narrative. This is the taming of the shrew. You just believe whatever you're being told. I don't think I've watched there's no real evidence of it. And even now, conservatives like Tucker Carlson and others have come out and changed what they think about what happened. I think that, and then keep in mind, Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota was the governor back then. He was a staunch opponent of Trump, spoke against the administration. Trump loses the election, says it was stolen, and then January 6th, all this stuff happens as a result of that, right? Why am I saying this? Because this is what I think. I'm not convinced of the stories that they're telling us about the crime rate in the Somalian communities in Minnesota, because they're not going after Somalian people. The ICE just have the freedom to do whatever they want right now. And it's going to backfire in a way that's going to be very dangerous. And you and I have to be very careful. That's a different conversation. This is what I think. I think based on how seemingly vindictive and vengeful Trump is, I think going into Minnesota and doing this is an act of vengeance on Trump's part. Keep in mind, DHS discussions reported that Minnesota is being singled out despite other states having larger undocumented populations. Other states. If you're really going after that, other states, I can give you more evidence that the FBI investigation of the fraud cases in Minnesota did not rise to the level of, this is FBI saying this, did not rise to the level of this kind of engagement in Minnesota. Why Minnesota? Why is ICE in Minnesota doing this? Because I think this is vengeance on Trump's part. I do. And you can say I'm being judgmental or not. I'm judging a tree by the fruit that it bears. I wish this weren't the case. But this stuff is not, you're not even going after people who we would deem as criminals. These are just typical people. Okay, so what? Fam, don't get me wrong. They should Renee Good have been in the road, blocking the road? No. Should the other lady who said she was autistic that was pulling out, who got yanked out of her car, should she have done that? No. I told you they gave her a lot of grace in that video. I think she crossed the line. I think people can do that. But when you watch that Alex Peretti video, and I think this is going to come back and haunt Trump and Noam, all of them, no, Kristen Noam or whatever, I think that man was done wrong. First of all, she tried to say he had his gun out and, fam, he got pepper sprayed. Have you ever been pepper sprayed? You ever ate too much pepper on your food and be like, ooh, he was pepper sprayed. Even if he had his gun out, he wouldn't be able to see well. Right as he was getting pepper sprayed, he saw the ICE agent violently push this lady down. And so he went over to grab her and help her up. And that's when they came for him and all that stuff. Watch the video. Watch it on many angles. You can say all you want. Don't get involved in an investigation. He had his camera out. DHS has already said that is not a crime. I did this last video. Go watch that video. I'm not going to repeat all of that. Said it's not a crime. What do you want to do? What do you expect them to do? I just think I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. I don't care if you're conservative Christian. I don't care. We stand on the side of truth. I'm not convinced that these people are doing right by the country, by Minnesota, and I'm not convinced that any believer who doesn't have the courage to at least acknowledge that this seems wrong. Even if you say, hey, I'm a Republican, this is how I vote, fine, but this is wrong. We're people of truth. We're not people of political conviction. We're people of biblical conviction. This is wrong. These people are made in his image. They're made in his image. ICE made in his image, and the people that made in his image. And if you say, well, that's not that, it's just a person here or there, look at the outrage this is causing. People were in Minnesota. It looked like George Floyd all over again. Because it's not about the person. It's about the actions of the government. And Trump is proving himself to be everything that the Project 2025 and stuff said he was going to do. He said he wasn't going to do that. He's proving himself to do that. If you are putting your hope in the political spectrum and you're a believer, man, best of luck to you. This is a dangerous time to do that. It's a dangerous time. I think Minnesota is being attacked. This is Trump's personal vengeance. I still pray for him. Still have a conviction to pray for Trump and the leaders of our country. Just because I feel this way doesn't mean I'm not advocating anything sinful happen. I think we should pray. Scripture says, look, honor the emperor, pray for your leaders, right? Let's do that. I'm not going to stop praying for Trump, but I'm not going to pretend like I don't see what I see or that it could be this, because you judge a tree by the fruit that it bears. All right, lastly, and probably the wildest, I'm not convinced. I don't even know if I should bring this up. This could be like a separate video. Should I even bring this up? Because this is a big one. You know what? I'm not going to bring this one up. I'm going to save this as it's on my next video, because this one's going to shock a lot of you. But I think when you see it, you're going to be like, I see it. But this is going to shock a lot of you. So I'm not going to go to, I'm going to save that for my next video, which will be probably Thursday. I'm going to save it for them. But what I am going to do today is I'm going to go to the tape, because I haven't gone to the tape in a while. So let's go to the tape and see what's popping. All right, come on, let me dance and do the what? I hear you. Fool me once, Rich. What's up, Rich? Shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Sorry, I'm not convinced either. Even worse, this stigmatizes people who have bipolar disorder. Oof. Yeah. Teacher, how many times should we forgive? Yay? Well, we're not talking about not forgiving. We're talking about not believing. I can forgive the dude, but I don't have to trust him, as many times as Christ forgave us. So really, is it up for us to even forgive when we don't know him? Yeah, I can see that. I can agree with that. Right on. Okay, I can see that. I'm curious what her friend Candace Owens would think of his apology letter to both the Jews or blacks. She's probably going to disown. That's an interesting. That'd be that's probably she's probably going to comment on it for sure. I'm sure. I mean, some people are going to say this that he's Trump has said. I mean, Kanye West has said this. If you do not kiss the ring, they're going to be able to shut you down. But he always said, "I'm bigger than them being able to stop me because I'm Ye." And apparently, if people are right, apparently not. I just think the connection, the historical apology that led to the release of something that could make him money, and now this album coming out supposedly on Friday, and him announcing, I'm making new products to help the world. Yeah, but you're going to also charge for them, so they're going to help you. It's a way to soften people's heart in that way, and to go after the. And, here's a point I wanted to make about the Wall Street Journal. Look, you're talking about the Jewish community, whom he said at one point runs Hollywood, holds all the money. Wall Street Journal is a business journal. Though that's why you didn't do it on like Revolt or the Shade Room or something else, another TMZ. You did it in a business journal. And if I'm being honest, I don't know Kanye West's writing style. It doesn't read like Kanye West. It does seem a little bit well written. Maybe he had AI do it. Nowadays, I don't know. Maybe he wrote it. It does seem a little different than what he's written, and that could just be the change of heart, the issue. But I do question. And I hope it's true. I do. I really do. I hope it's true. This is exactly why Cap is skeptical. He's trying to promote his album and attention. Sorry, I'm skeptical. Yeah, I am too. Hope I'm wrong also. Uh-oh. I'm not sure what you're reacting to here, Mel, because I know we're going on. I wonder that too. Yeah, hey, man, I'm not sure what you're reacting to. Hey, man, thank you, brother. That was outrageous. Donald said it in the debate. Yeah, remember that? They are lying about a lot of things. I mean, it was beautiful, and then Trump messed it up. Okay, I'm not sure. It was beautiful, and then Trump messed it up. All right. It might have been Georgia. Okay, I'm not sure where it was. Oh, it was Georgia? Okay. That was Georgia? Okay, it was Georgia. All right. I hear ICE is in Georgia and Maine. I'm not surprised. Yo, what's good, bro? Facts. That cat got like shot 5 times, taken his gun away and hit multiple times. Word is his ribs were injured also. Yeah, so and this is the thing though. At what point? Here's the question I don't hear anyone asking, or maybe they do and I just haven't heard it. At what point is someone a threat to law enforcement when they're disarmed and they're outnumbered and he's on the ground? First of all, in any militaristic confrontation, you always want what? The high ground. Everyone, we watch, and if you're in the military, you understand that. If you watch military movies, the goal is to get to the high ground because then you have an advantage. He's laying on the ground, right? The officers, everyone agrees that he took his gun off. Everyone watched him take it off of his hip, which he had a right to carry the gun, and he walked away, and then they shot him 5 times. Can we just be honest and stop pretending like human nature isn't that? If you give people the power, listen, you know why I've always hated the idea of once saved, always saved, and the way people say it. When people say once saved, always saved, believe me, this is going to come out. I'm going to collect the dust. I'm not drifting, right? When people say once saved, always saved, this is not what they mean. They don't mean I made a profession of faith. I repented of my sins. I lived a life of holiness, and I persevered to the end. I slipped here and there, but I kept fighting. That's not what they mean by once saved. When I made a profession and I lived a holy life, and then I'm saved. That's not what they mean. What people mean is when they say once saved, always saved, what they mean is I can make a profession of faith. I can live an unholy, sinful life, but I'm still saved. Because once I'm saved, I'm always, so you have lordship versus all this stuff, right? The Bible doesn't process it like that. There's no literature that says that the thief on the cross was the only one. When people say that, it's a way for them to give in to sin without having to take any responsibility for it because you presume on grace, right? This is what I think can be happening. This happens a lot in all these things, from Kanye, from Trump. I just think you presume on certain things, and then you want the forgiveness of. Actually, let me stop. This spills into something else that I want to talk about. Let me stop. Yes, we are supposed to stand on the side of truth as Christians. I 100% agree. True. I wonder why cats like Allie Beth don't come out calling us wrong. She would have done this if it was Biden office. I believe she would have. 100%. I agree. Please do. Oh, man. Nice cliffhanger, bro. Listen, I promise you. The one I bring up Thursday, or maybe I might do it tomorrow. Let me see. I might do it tomorrow. It's going to be, when you see it, I think, if I'm right, when you see it, you're going to be like, wow. You're going to be like, wow. I need that merch. I got you. When are you putting out more? Soon, very soon, bro. Very soon. I got some stuff coming, album coming. I got a lot coming. I'm going to give a formal apology like Kanye for not making enough videos and then drop. Now, it's too soon. That was probably too soon. Never mind. All right. I got stuff coming for sure. Thank you so much for your videos and sharing your perspective. My wife and I watch a lot of your videos. Blessed by that, brother. We appreciate being here with a different perspective that wants to glorify God. Blessings. Man, I appreciate that, fam. That's what I do this for. I don't do this for, I mean, sure, you want your channel to go. I don't even care about that. I don't even talk about that anymore. I just think, how do we honor the Lord? But also, I want to be wise as serpents and shrewd as doves. Like, I'm not going to pretend like, oh, just love means to trust every. No, you got to be discerning, right? I don't trust the devil. I don't trust the left or the right. I don't trust them. But I will say this. This is what I will say. And this may make some of my conservative friends either unsubscribe or be mad. But I will say this. The left were liars in a way that was like, they were truthful about their being like, we don't know what a woman is. They were at least out there. The right really believes that, like, their narratives that they're telling people, and they're really trying to convince you. And here's the problem. Because if you're a Christian and you have more conservative values, here's the problem. It's the mindset that I have to agree with and ride with the values that I subscribe to, and I'm unwilling to say, no, the truth here. Like, I need to deal with the truth. I'm a person of truth, in spirit and in truth. I'm not in spirit and political position. I'm not theological, right? I'm trying to be biblical. The reality is, I think Trump and them are just lying in ways that are just like, fam, you're really, like, my mom used to say this when I was a kid, you trying to insult my intelligence. And I knew what she meant, but I didn't really understand it. But as I got older, I understood, you trying to insult my intelligence. And I think he's trying to insult our intelligence. He really is. I don't care if what do you want? Did Biden be? Everyone always says that. It's like, no, I don't have to have either of them. I don't have to want Trump in or Biden in. I can say, I want to believe in Jesus and I want to live for Jesus. And I would love it if we had people in political office that said, I want to live for Jesus. I want to honor Jesus as well. I would love that. I would love that. This isn't if I disagree with Trump that I'm for Biden, or if I disagree. That's not what this is at all. I think all of them cannot be trusted. Personally, I think a lot of politics are the civilian affairs, the entanglements that Scripture says we shouldn't be wrapped up in. Just because we're allowed to vote doesn't mean we're obligated to be allegiance to a political party because they have better values in our mindset. I'm not saying it's sinful, but man, oh man, don't try to make me think that I got to support conservatives or Trump or whoever's in office, no matter what they do. These people are doing evil stuff. Evil stuff. And I think the Lord will, unless they repent genuinely, the Lord will have something to say about it. My job is to make sure, and your job is to make sure that your love does not grow cold towards people whom you vehemently disagree with. That's your job. Matthew 24, 12 and 13. I said this before, and I'll end with this. Jesus said in his own words, because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures to the end will be saved. So I still pray for ICE agents. I'll pray for Trump, pray for J.D. Vance. I'll pray for whoever. I don't even know who's on the Democratic side at this point. I don't really pay attention. I'll pray for whoever because that's what we're supposed to do. If Jesus could pray, Father, forgive them for they know not what they do, to two soldiers who were crucifying him, then we should be able to pray to a president who's crucifying people proverbially in other countries, in other states. I think this is vindictive, and I'm not going to support it at all. And I don't really care if people don't like my channel anymore because of it. It just is what it is. It's not that serious to me. Having said that, I will see y'all. I got a crazy joint tomorrow. I think I'm gonna do it tomorrow. Tomorrow is probably the best day. Look for a notification around 4 or 5 tomorrow. We're gonna get it in. All right. I'm out of here. Love y'all. Good to see y'all again. Grace and peace. We will talk again soon.